Hi there, Smart Driver, talking to you about driving in deep snow, ice, and conditions that compromise traction and give you weird behavior of your vehicle. That's what we're going to talk about. Tips and strategies to stay safe on snow and ice. So the presentation is mostly directed towards people driving in the South. So people in Kentucky, the Carolinas, Virginia, West Virginia. You call it the Carolinas, but you don't call it the Virginias, which is interesting. You call it the Dakotas, the Carolinas, but you don't call it the Virginias because it's Virginia and West Virginia. So that's different than North and South Carolina and North and South Dakota. All these skills, all these techniques and information are directed to everybody who's getting snowstorm right now and it is freezing cold. This will help you out, keep you safe on the roadways, and help you to drive with more confidence on compromised traction. Know, first and foremost, in the wintertime, know that it is most treacherous when the temperature is near freezing because there's a layer of water on top of the ice and it makes the ice and snow more slippery. So it is more treacherous to drive at 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, than it is to drive at minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 12 degrees Celsius, because sub-zero temperatures, tires get traction to the freezer. When you first take them out, they're sticky and you let them sit on the counter for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, and they start to melt. There's a layer of water on the top of around the ice, and it'll go skidding off across the countertop. Near freezing, at freezing temperatures, water thaws and freezes. It thaws, freezes. Layer of water lubricates the ice and it is most slippery at intersections. This is another thing about winter tires and how they work. Okay, heat. When you come up to the intersection, people are hitting the brakes, they're skidding up to the intersection, they're sliding, and friction causes heat, and this causes the snow and ice at the intersection to melt, and this creates that layer of water on top of the ice and snow. Same thing as the Zamboni at the ice hockey rink. So know that intersections are going to be slippery, and I'll talk more about this. Slow down back from the intersection. Same thing on highways. Slow down back from where you want to actually stop and then creep up to where you actually want to get stopped. So smooth inputs into the accelerator, the brake, and the steering wheel. Overuse of any one of those controls on your vehicle will cause you to lose control and potentially go into a skid on the roadway. Where does the proverbial black ice form on the roadways? Bridges and overpasses, low and high elevations, anywhere the road lies in shadow or anywhere that the road goes past a body of water. These are the places where you potentially could find black ice. In addition to that, black ice is going to form when there's very little traffic on the roadways. Think of it like calm river water as opposed to flowing river water is going to take longer to freeze because the water's moving. Water that is sitting still freezes first, and it's the same thing with a roadway. Overnight there's very little traffic, the water can sit on the roadway, it gets cold, and then it freezes. In addition to that, and this is the same thing with what's going on with the Northwest and the Midwest in the United States, roads are going to be more treacherous because they're not plowed, and there's ruts on the roadways, and there's piles of snow, windrows of slush, and those types of things, and you're going to have to move through those, especially if you're changing lanes and those types of things. Know that when there are winter storms and the snow and ice on the roadways, that main roads are going to be plowed first. So as you get into the suburbs, there's going to be more and more snow that you're going to have to deal with in terms of driving. 2X, there's no snow on the road, but temperature is 1 degree here in New York City. Is it still dangerous? Definitely susceptible to ice on the roadways if there is water, in the form of fog at night or there's melting during the day, those types of things. All of that can lead to ice on the roadways, okay? Are slippery or there's snow, it's going to be curves, corners, and turns. Know that in the winter time, braking and steering should be two separate actions. In order for the tires to have traction, the tires have to be rolling, okay? A locked or spinning wheel always leads. In other words, if you got too much brake and the wheels are locked up, you cannot get traction to steer. All right, and the steer tires do most of the braking, but they also do the steering. So know that braking and steering have to be two separate actions. Are going to be cleared. All right, distance, following distance is going to be 3 to 4 seconds, and that is an absolute must when you are driving in compromised traction and questionable road conditions. Curves, corners, and turns, slow down on the straight and then go around the curve, and you want power to the wheels. I'm not talking about accelerating, but you want slight push on the drivetrain as you're moving forward. It's also not as treacherous as it once was. Most vehicles in this day and age are four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, or front-wheel drive. There are very few rear-wheel drive vehicles in this day and age. Now, in addition to that, when I say that and I talk about drivetrains, I know that most people, and it's interesting, just leave a comment here. If you're watching now on the live stream or you're watching on the replay, tell me what kind of drivetrain you have in your vehicle. Is it all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, or is it rear-wheel drive? Which one of those four drivetrains do you have in your vehicle? I can tell you from a professional experience that, well, okay, I'm guessing professional conjecture here is that 60%. At least do not know what kind of drivetrain they have in their vehicle. Okay, power through the curve, don't accelerate, but moving and pushing the vehicle through the curve. Oversteering, this is what happens when you turn the steering wheel and the back end of the vehicle starts to come around. So you're oftentimes driving too fast for conditions of the roadway. And again, when I lost control of the buggy there 3 or 4 years ago on the highway going up the road and hit ice on the roadways, I was driving too fast for conditions. And as soon as I turned the steering wheel, even the tiniest, littlest bit, the back end lifted up because shifted the equilibrium in the vehicle going around the corner and lost control of the vehicle. Again, following distance is critical if this happens to you, because if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. Understeering, this is when you turn the steering wheel and the vehicle continues to go straight. And oftentimes this will happen on slippery conditions when you're braking and steering at the same time. Now you can get away with that in the summertime. You can brake and steer at the same time because there's all kinds of traction. However, in the winter time on slippery conditions, ice and snow, you cannot do this. Braking and steering must be separate actions. Turning, brake first and then steer around the corner. The saying in the racing industry is, scares the passenger because the back end starts to come around. Understeering scares the driver because you're turning the steering wheel and it's continuing to go straight. Skid recovery, steer in the direction that you want to go. And I know that there are going to be smart drivers that are going to come back to me and they're going to say, steer in the direction of the skid. Well, like I said, I've been doing this for like 30 years and I've never figured out which way is the direction of the skid, whether it's the back end coming around or the front end continuing to go straight when it's understeering, whatever it is. And in addition to that, if you're steering in the direction of the skid and the direction of the skid is the ditch, is that really? Probably not. So steer in the direction you want the vehicle to go. And get out of the main tracks, get over onto the shoulder of the road if you can. Rumble strips, gravel shoulders, a bit of grass, those types of things will help you to find and get traction in order to steer the vehicle or get it stopped. Not like the woman who hit ice on an interchange and you know, the vehicle wasn't going to stop on the ice and she just bailed. She just got out of the vehicle and continued to let it go. Now, the thing is, had she stayed behind the controls of the vehicle would have gone into the grass and she would have had traction. She would have got the vehicle stopped within a few feet. But for whatever reason, she just bailed out of the vehicle. Look in the direction that you want the vehicle to go. Wear your seatbelt. Your seatbelt not only protects you in the event of a crash, but also keeps you in the driver's seat in the event of an emergency, because it's really, really tough to drive the vehicle if you're upside down in the footwell on the passenger side. Wear your seatbelt. And as well, you can push off the dead pedal. So A, B, C, D, the accelerator, the brake, the clutch if you got a manual transmission, and D, the dead pedal. It's that place on the left side of the driver's footwell where you can rest your left foot, but you can also push back into the driver's seat to help you stay in control. It was adopted from racing, okay? And don't give up if you get into a skid. Interstate backups or highway backups. If you come up and you see that the traffic is stopped in front of you, stay back from where the backup is and have that space in front of your vehicle, because it is less likely that a moving vehicle is going to be tailgated. So stay back and then roll up slowly, activate your four-way flashers until other traffic gets behind you and there's a queue behind you, because you want to give ample warning to that traffic behind you that is coming up that you are actually slowing down and coming to a stop behind the stop traffic on the highway or the freeway. Stay off the brakes on slippery conditions. Look for landmarks along the highway, along the roadway, especially if visibility is poor. There's a lot of snow, a lot of ice on the roadways. Okay? Straight line. Stay in a straight line. And drive the speed at which the flow of traffic is traveling. that's the speed you should be traveling. If you are going faster than the flow of traffic in snow and ice, you should not be driving on the roadways. You're driving too fast. Crashing. If a crash is imminent, try and reduce your speed as much as possible. And this is what happened when I went into a spin there with the buggy a couple, 3 years ago. It slowed down very quickly. Okay, once the vehicle is sideways and it's sliding and you are not having any acceleration, the vehicle is going to slow down really, really quickly. So aim for something soft, a bush, a fence, not a rock, not a tree. Those are not soft and they will do a lot of damage to your vehicle. So aim for something soft and try to have a glancing blow off another vehicle rather than a head-on collision with another vehicle. And here is some very, very sound advice. If you have the choice between a sideswipe crash and a head-on crash, pick the sideswipe crash every time. Most sideswipe crashes only result in property damage. Head-on crashes and tail and rear end crashes and T-bone crashes often end in fatalities. Sideswipe crashes, on the other hand, do not result in fatalities. Most of the time, as I said, it's just property damage. So if you have the choice, pick the sideswipe crash. Proactive winter driving. Have good quality tires on your vehicle. Winter tires are preferred if you're getting snow and ice, but at minimum, quality all-weather tires that have either the M&S symbol on them or the Three Peak Mountain Snowflake symbol on them. That's where the rubber meets the road. That is the little bit of contact that you have with the road surface. Have good quality tires in your vehicle. Increase following distance 4 to 6 seconds behind other traffic. And when I say 4 to 6 seconds, I don't mean 4 to 6 car lengths. I mean the car in front, the vehicle in front passes a fixed object, a traffic sign, a light standard. They pass, you start counting. 1 Wolverine, 2 Wolverines, 3 Wolverines, 4 Wolverines. You should be 4 seconds minimum before you pass that same fixed object that the vehicle in front of you passed as well. That's your minimum safe distance when road and traffic conditions deteriorate, because if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. So keep your following distance behind other traffic. Clear all the ice and snow off your vehicles. Brake early. Gentle, deft inputs into the controls, the acceleration, the brake, and the steering wheel. Brake on the straight and slowly, go through curves, corners, and turns. Look far down the road. Look for landmarks, especially if you have snowstorm, deep snow. You're going to have to look for landmarks when you're driving. You're going to have to look for utility poles, intersections, concrete barriers, traffic signs, other traffic on the roadways. And if weather is bad and there's blizzards and blowing snows, please do not activate your hazard lights. Everybody else on the roadway knows that the weather is bad. They're in the same conditions as you. You got those flashing, blinking lights on the back of your car with the hazard lights. First of all, it's distracting you because it's click, 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 click inside the car, and the person following you is looking at those hazard lights and it's distracting other traffic on the roadway. So don't activate your hazard lights. Simply turn your headlights from the auto position to the on position to activate and turn on your taillights behind. And every now and again, if you're driving long distances, for example, in ice and snow, go into a fuel station and brush off all the lights and clean the glass and those types of things when you're driving to keep yourself safe. Because keep in mind, driving is a social activity and it is important to both be seen and to see. Because if other drivers can see you on the roadway and you make a mistake or something goes wrong, they're likely to help you out if they can see your taillights and your vehicle on the roadway. Stay safe, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.